My name is Katie Dial and my partner is Sujay Greenland. We did our project on the relationship between emergency department visits caused by asthma and air quality, specifically the levels of atmospheric particulate matter, or PM 2.5, in California. Particle pollution can form through chemical or mechanical processes. Combustion of carbon-based fuels will create finer particles, such as PM 2.5. Particle pollution can be created through wildfires, burning fossil fuels, construction, and demolition. This particle pollution causes poor air quality, and when there are high levels of it, it can trigger conditions such as asthma. Elevated exposure to PM 2.5 is linked to developing conditions such as asthma, lung cancer, increased risk of heart attacks, and strokes. California has some of the worst air quality in the nation. Cities such as Los Angeles and Ontario are topping many lists of the nation's poorest air quality. The chart above is from the American Lung Association. It shows the most polluted cities in the nation in 2019. As seen here, California cities top the list in each of these categories, with many other California cities following close behind. Air pollution can lead to the development of asthma in young children, and it also can increase rates of asthma attacks. Asthma is a disease which affects the lungs and can cause difficulty breathing as well as coughing. High levels of PM 2.5 in the air can trigger asthma attacks, as the small particles can go through the mouth or the nose and irritate the lungs. In 2019, asthma attacks counted for 1.7 million emergency department visits in the nation, and in 2010, it accounted for almost 180,000 emergency department visits in California alone. This makes asthma one of the top 20 reasons for emergency department visits in the entire nation.
So the main purpose of our project was to see if there was a correlation between emergency department visits due to asthma compared to the air quality in the state of California, and we looked at the trends over a 10-year period from 2005 to 2014, and we chose California because it was deemed to have the worst air quality out of all the states in the nation. So you want to see if the trends were somehow related. For example, if the air quality got better, would the asthma visits decrease or vice versa? And we chose all emergency department visits for asthma as one of the parameters. Among all the indicators, emergency department visits seemed the best option since it was covering everybody, not just children or adults. And the measure we used was the number of visits per year because it included all the age groups, sex, race, and ethnicities, so it wasn't just specifying towards one group of people. And then the other parameter we chose was the days above the national PM 2.5 levels, and we looked at the percent of days per year that the levels were over the national standard, and we used this using the EPHT network, the Environmental Health Public Health Tracking Network, which is a database that has ongoing collection, integration, analysis, and dissemination of environmental hazards and exposure and health data. And it has an emphasis on the data integration and standardization from all sources, and it's based off of concepts that were used for infectious and chronic diseases, surveillance, and environmental hazard monitoring. The first graph here is showing the number of counties that had 0% of days with PM 2.5 levels above the national standard compared to the number of counties that had greater than 5%, which is about 40 days above the national standard over our 10-year period that we were looking at, which again was 2005 to 2014. And we see that the number of counties at 0% is the blue line, while the number of counties that are greater than 5% are the orange line. And these parameters were chosen because 0% is showing that there were however many number of counties that had no days with PM 2.5 levels above the national standard compared to the number of counties that had over 5% of days with PM 2.5 levels above the national standard. And 5% was chosen because it was shown that it was the higher end of the spectrum, so it was the highest category from what we were looking at. And we see that overall, across the 10-year period, that the number of counties with 0% have increased from about 10 to 20. And I think the actual number was like 7 days in 2005 up to 20 days in 2014, whereas the number of counties that had greater than 5% was about 11 counties in 2005 to about 6 or 7 in 2014, so that had a slight decrease, with the lowest number of counties that had greater than 5% was in 2010, which had only about 3 counties, and the year with the highest number of counties with 0% was in 2012, which we can see is about 36 or 37 counties in California that had 0% of days above the national standard. So this is our second graph, which is showing the number of counties with emergency department visits over the 10-year period from 2005 to 2014. And the blue line is showing the number of counties that had less than 121 visits due to asthma. And the orange line is showing the number of counties that had greater than 5,605 visits due to asthma. What I mean by this is they went to the emergency department because they were having an asthma attack or something related to asthma. And as we see overall, the values did not really change, where we can see in 2005, the number of counties that had less than 121 visits was 9, and in 2014 it was 11, with the lowest number of counties in 2009 being 8. And for number of counties that had more than 5,600 emergency department visits were 8 counties in 2005 and 11 counties in 2014, with there being 10 counties from 2009 to 2013 that had greater than the 5,600. So overall, they're not very significant as they pretty much remain the same. And again, this was all emergency department visits due to asthma over this 10-year period. Here are two maps that are comparing just 2005 to just 2014 of the percent of days that had PM 2.5 levels greater than the national average. And again, this is for just California, showing the counties in these different categories: 0% to 0.5, 0.5 to 1.1, 1.1 to 2.5, 2.5 to 4.9, and then greater than 4.9% of days that had greater than the national average PM 2.5 levels. And these checkered boxes are showing model data, so those counties did not have the data, so the data was extrapolated based off of the surrounding areas and based off of what the scientists think was the most likely values. And as we can see, also that we were able to see on the on the line graph previously, that overall the data is getting better. So there's a lot less of the greater than 4% values and a lot more of the 0% to 0.5%. However, the problem here is that there is more model data from 2014 compared to 2005. So that means that they may have not been taking the data, so we don't actually know if this is completely accurate or not. But based off of the surrounding counties and the other trends within the 10 years, overall it has been decreasing, which again we can see here. Here's our second set of maps that's showing the total number of emergency department visits related to asthma. And on the left it's 2005, and on the right it's 2014. And again, this is showing the total number of visits due to asthma between just those 2 years for the state of California. And if we compare this to the line graph previously, we can see how they've pretty much stayed the same. So as we see, overall, the trends were about the same, and with some counties getting actually having more asthma related visits, and some counties ended up having less. And so overall, they pretty much stay the same, which again is going along with the line graph and showing how the asthma may not actually be related to the air quality. Because if it was, then we should see a decrease in the trend of the asthma emergency department visits. However, we do not.
There are many programs across the nation which address how to manage asthma and its triggers, but I want to talk about one that specifically addresses air pollution related to asthma. Air quality awareness among those who have asthma is one strategy to avoid outdoor triggers in order to avoid asthma attacks. A study done from 2016 to 2018 showed that adults who received Air Quality Index or AQI alerts were more likely to take action to protect their health when the air quality was poor. Asthma sufferers can take action by either checking the AQI in their area for the day online or on an app such as the Weather Channel app. The Weather Channel app details pollution particles that are in the air that day in their area. Another way to get alerts or stay updated on the AQI is through the EPA's email alerts called EnviroFlash. I believe that this strategy will be most beneficial to those with asthma as they can reduce their outdoor activity when pollutants like PM 2.5 are high, which in turn can minimize asthma-related emergency department visits. A large issue in California, as we all know, is wildfires. So, another way to reduce asthma-related emergency department visits is to attempt to prevent wildfires in the California area. A study that was done on emergency department visits related to respiratory conditions during the 2007 Southern California wildfires found that exposure to the pollutants from wildfires significantly increased emergency department visits for asthma. There were 1.5 times more emergency department visits for asthma than during just a normal day during that period of wildfires. Wildfires can start from the smallest spark, which then can rapidly spread through dry or super windy areas. Wildfires are the largest contributor to small particles like PM 2.5. So the people in California can help prevent wildfires by safely burning debris, safely disposing of cigarette butts, properly using equipment such as lawnmowers, and also knowing when to avoid these activities is also helpful. When to avoid it is when it's extremely dry out or the wind is super heavy on a certain day. This strategy seems like it may be less successful than the last because it depends on people's actions, but it can still be useful to minimize the air pollution in the community and reduce asthma attacks in those that suffer, which in turn will reduce emergency department visits.
Finally, we have the limitations of the study. And so the biggest limitation was the lack of data from the EPHT tracking network. Because if we look back at the air quality maps, there was a lot of model data, so we don't know how accurate that is. And it was just data that was extrapolated based on the surrounding areas. So it gave us estimations and not like the actual data. And then also, the emergency department visits may not be accurate as well because asthma may be an underlying cause for the emergency department visit, but might have not actually been known that the person had asthma or it was an asthma related issue. And so the reports for that could also be higher than what the data is showing. And at the same time, the asthma may be over prescribed, I guess. And so the reports could actually be lower than what the data is showing. So this is all based off of how many doctors there are related to like specializing in asthma and how they're diagnosing the people that are going to the emergency department for these issues.
Thanks for watching!